So in this tutorial, we're going to be talking about the if-error formula. So some of you might be like, well, why do we need this? Well, because it is a huge thing, especially if you are making and selling your spreadsheets. It is a great thing if you ever see these errors like this one or like this one over here. There's a bunch of errors, and now sometimes errors in Google Sheets are great because it allows us to know, hey, we made a mistake, we need to fix a formula. But there's other times when we do have the correct formula in there and it's pulling in an error because, let's say, for this example here, there's no data in here. So I've copied a formula to show the percentage based off of my actual spending versus my budget. I wanted to see the different percentages, so I created my formula. I've copied it all the way down, but because some of these are blank, it's giving me an error because you can't divide 0 by 0, or you can't divide something by 0. So it's giving me these lovely errors. So even though the formula is correct, and if I added something in here, so if I added 60 and maybe we only spent $40, it would give me the correct percentage. But if it is blank, because maybe I haven't entered in a number yet, it's giving me an error. Now, when I create a spreadsheet and I give it to my customers, it's going to be all fresh like this. It's not going to have any data in there because my customers need to add their own personal data into it. So if they looked at this when they first got a spreadsheet, they'd be like, oh my gosh, my spreadsheet's broken. There's an error, especially if they're brand new to spreadsheets. If you looked at this and you didn't know anything about spreadsheets, you'd be like, oh my goodness, something's wrong with my formula or something's wrong with my spreadsheet. And then they're going to be contacting you and you're going to get a lot of customer support issues. And we don't want that. We want happy customers. We want them to have a beautiful experience where they just use the spreadsheet as it was intended and everything works perfectly. So that's why the if-error formula is key. So let me just undo that so we actually have some data. But I just want to show you another example as well. So this is my TV show tracker template. And we do have an option where you can search for the TV show's name. You could check the status, the platform, and the current episode. Now, if I didn't use an if-error formula along with my original formula, I would get these errors when my thing is blank. So if I chose, let's say, Game of Thrones, it automatically pulls in the correct data. But when I first am starting out with my spreadsheet, like it's a fresh one, my customers have it, this is going to be blank. That's not going to say anything. And if we have these errors, again, your customers are going to look at this and be like, something's wrong with my spreadsheet. We've got some errors, fix it. So that's why we use the if-error formula to hide these, to allow us to write in some text to kind of guide our customers, even though the formulas are correct, everything works perfectly, because as you just saw, I just chose, let's do Downton Abbey this time, it automatically pulls up the right data when it's used correctly, like the formulas are right, but when it's blank and it's a fresh spreadsheet, it's going to have an error. So we want to prevent that. So that's why we use the if-error formula. So now I'm going to come over here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to double click on my very first cell. And as you can see, here's my formula. I've taken my actual number and I've divided it by my budget number to get the percentage. Now, to add an if error, what I'm going to do is in between the equal sign and then my actual formula, I'm going to write in if error. Then I'm going to put in the left bracket. And now it's going to ask me the value. So I'm going to leave the value as my current formula because that's what I want to say. If there's no error, I want it to continue on with my original formula. But at the end of it, so as you can see, I've got still in my value, but if I put a comma, now I'm going to do, what do I want it to say if there is an error? Now, it depends. It really depends on what you want it to say. So I will show you an example. Like for now, we're just going to do, we've got different options. We can either say a 0, we can have it be blank, you can have it say something very specific. For this one, I might just use a 0. So I'll just put a 0 and then a right bracket. So that's all I want it to show. If there is an error, it's going to show 0. And again, you only want to add this if error formula if you know your formulas are working first. So usually what I do when I'm creating my spreadsheets is I will create all my different formulas, make sure they're all working properly, test out my data, and then I'll go back. And when I clear out all my original data, for example, so let me just hit enter there. So like when I'm getting ready, my spreadsheet ready to give to my customers, I'll go back and delete any test data, I'll delete that out. And that allows me to see, hey, do we have any errors? Like, do I need to fix anything? Do I have to add an if error formula to any of my other formulas? So once you clear out that data, you'll quickly see, okay, well, this is supposed to be a fresh spreadsheet for my customers, and I've got all these errors. So anyways, we have our formula here, where again, it's our if error formula with our left bracket. Then we have our original formula right here. Then I have my comma and what I want it to say if there is an actual error. For this example, I'm going to do a 0, but you might want to update it. I'll show you a different option in a second. And then I have my end bracket. So I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to copy that all the way down. So as you can see, now it all says 0 until I'm ready to add in my numbers. So let's say my budget for transportation was $600 and my actual, maybe I only spent $550. And there you go. So the formula still works, but instead of seeing all those errors, you see a nice 0 and it doesn't freak out your customers. So this is a huge thing to do. Now I just want to show you the example over here. So let's go to my original one. So right now we have Downton Abbey selected, but if I delete this so that it clears out whatever's in my drop down menu, you can see I can have it say a specific like wording. So this one says select a show from the drop down. So you can easily change that out just anytime you write an if formula, wherever I put, like, so for the example in the 0, if I want to change that out and say add your budget numbers, and then if you want to add an emoji and like point to a certain direction, you can. So let's do an arrow if we wanted to. Let's say I want to point to the left. And then I'm going to make sure that's in quotation marks. Always make sure if you're going to write text to put it inside of quotation marks so that way it actually shows. So again, my if error, this is the correct formula if there is no error, but if there is an error, I want it to show this. Hit enter. I might have to make this slightly, resize my column, make it a little bit bigger so it actually can show everything. But now if I have it like this, it's going to tell me add in your budget number. So I can copy this all the way down. And then as I add in, so let's do 600. Now it shows 0% because this is a 0. So out of 600, we haven't used any yet. But if I say 400, it will show my correct percentage. So you can do blank. You could do a number, you can do actual text like I showed you in here. Just make sure you put it in between your quotation marks. You can have it say whatever you want, but it's a great way to kind of guide your customers to do what they need to do. So in this example, the TV show, they need to choose a show from the drop down, and that's what it says, select a show from the drop down. So now I can go over here and be like, okay, the Gilded Age. Oh, we haven't started it yet, and it's current platforms on Crackle or whatever, for example. So you can have that make it super easy for your customers to understand. Let me just, sorry, trying to delete this and clear it out. There we go. Delete. Pushing enter instead of delete. Oh. But it just gives your customers clear instructions on what to do next. That's why I like using it. So it's up to you what you put in there, a 0, a blank, or some text, totally up to you. But again, you just want to make your spreadsheets as easy as possible and avoid those errors because they do show up. And yeah, you want to avoid your customers getting confused or frustrated because then that saves you a lot of time for your emails and your customer support. So if you have any questions at all about the if error formula, let me know. If not, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Don't forget, you can sign up for my free mini course, the Wild Heart Spreadsheet Academy, which is perfect for beginners, where I show you everything there is to know about Google Sheets and getting you started creating your own spreadsheets. Plus, you get to create a cute weekly planner. You also get a free custom GPT to give you some ideas to create your first spreadsheet. So completely free. Check it out. I have the link below. Thank you so much.